Few survive this world. But those who do awaken. The desert wants you dead, off-worlder. If the sands don't take you, the storms will swallow you whole. But you don't have to walk this path alone. In every danger, there is opportunity. The foundation of something greater. A power waiting to be harnessed. Desert power. Some claim to rule this planet. But Arrakis is yours to explore. To fight for. To conquer. But there are forces beyond even your control. Master Arrakis, and it will open your mind. This is your path to awakening.
Hello everybody to our, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, last developer live stream before our head start and the full launch of Dune Awakening. I'm Natascha Röösli. I have the honor to be your host for today. And I think I'm not the only one when I say I'm so excited for you to experience what our teams have been working on for the past years. So some of you have gotten a taste of what the game feels and looks like during the beta weekend. But today we go beyond the beta and show you a glimpse of Mid- and Endgame of Dune Awakening. We have first a little segment where we talk beta and combat. We then have live gameplay of Hagga Basin and also social hubs. We go into live gameplay of the Deep Desert. And as always, we have a Q&A in the end, where we'll be connecting questions from you, from chat, live during the stream. But before we dive into all of that, let's watch a brand new video.
Combat in Dune Awakening is the fusion of melee, shields, ranged, abilities, and vehicles. As you progress, your tactical options expand, allowing you to express yourself through different styles of play. In the beginning, combat is a short, brutal affair. Do everything you can to knock your opponents off balance and open them up for a retaliating strike. Keep an eye on your stamina, or find yourself in trouble. Early abilities change the paradigm. Use the voice to force your enemies to come to you. Shigawire Claw to stagger an enemy. Knee charge into melee range. Ranged weapons like the Mauler pistol allow you to maintain distance and take down enemies from afar, until a shielded enemy enters the fray. Boltzmann shields change the nature of combat. Their kinetic barrier can only be pierced by slow-moving objects. Fast on defense, slow on attack. Swords, daggers, kinjals, and rapiers are effective for dealing with shielded enemies, but without a shield of your own, you will quickly be overwhelmed by enemy fire. But the shields also have a weakness beyond the slow blade. Ranged attacks cannot be fired from inside an active shield, creating a window of opportunity for the others to exploit. Specialized range weapons can counteract shields. The drill shot rifle fires drilling darts that will attach to a shield and slowly pass through. The disruptor fires statically charged darts at variable speeds to overwhelm the power supply of the shield. Abilities can turn the tide of any battle. Swordmasters use their deflection ability to close the distance and bring their crippling strikes to bear on their enemies. Troopers use their techniques to take to the air and bring death from above. Bene Gesserit stop enemies in their tracks with the power of the voice, or use their Bindu dash to quickly close the gap. Mentats control the battlefield with their sentinel, or use the Hunter-Seeker for a silent takedown. Abilities, ranged weapons, shields and melee work in concert to allow mastery. But beyond mastery lies the spice. Consume it to awaken. Transcend human limits with new abilities and prescience, seeing what others cannot, the narrow path to victory. Combine these techniques freely to experience sandbox combat. Create unique strategies and bring them to bear against your foes. Always remember, Arrakis takes the weak.
And we are back and diving straight into our first segment, showing you mid-game in the Hagga Basin towards endgame as well. But first, let's of course introduce our guests for today. Here on this side, we did let him out of the doghouse. We have Joel Bylos, aka Chris Knife, our creative director. Joel, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi everybody. My name is, I have to admit it, Joel Bylos this time. So because this is the last live stream, I'm going to admit that my name is Joel.
Love it.
It's fine. And yep, looking forward to talking about everything we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Yes, and on this side we have Scott Jr., our executive producer on the game, new face.
Yeah, finally let me out. You know,
Yes.
The game is done.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's good to see you both, and good to talk about Dune finally.
Very excited. So, Scott, let us do a little bit of a throwback to beta.
Sure.
Players, as mentioned, have had, let's say, not a small taste, but a taste of the game, the survival aspect of the game. Maybe we can have an infographic where we actually see what the players in the beta were able to experience. Here we have a little infographic. What was the most valuable takeaway from this beta?
I think getting the game in so many people's hands so they can understand what we made. When we started working on Dune, we wanted to make more than just a normal survival game. We wanted to make a very Dune game, first and foremost. And so that's not obvious, right, what we were doing, because we were taking a lot of risks trying to do some new takes on things to make them more Dune than survival. So we have a lot of people finally being able to play the game and understand, what we're trying to do. So that was great. And then seeing the feedback and the reactions and all the social media posts, all the YouTube videos, it's been fantastic seeing all the feedback. My personal takeaways is that we had a couple technical issues that we were able to sort out and get fixed pretty quickly. Some issues with some crashes and freezes that we've already fixed. So I'm really excited to get the game out next week so everybody can see what we've changed.
Yep.
Anything you
100%.
wanted to add?
No, I mean, for me, it's just a lot of fun to watch people finally playing. Like, someone asked me on Discord like a year ago, like, tell us about the game. They wanted me to describe the game. They weren't in the beta. And I was like, well, it's very hard to describe because it's something unique. Yes, it has some familiar survival stuff, but we've layered it all underneath the Dune IP. And it's really hard to describe how all of those things come together to create something that I feel is kind of unique and interesting, right? And so, yeah, I think it was fun for people to really get their hands on it. I mean, we've been talking with the closed beta players for a while, but seeing people in the world having it, streaming it, you know, putting up YouTube videos, talking about what they were experiencing, I think, you know, importantly, people finding out whether they like or dislike the game as well, because I really like people to be able to make an informed choice about what they're buying as well. So, yeah.
100%. I think one thing I can add to this as well is, like, for me, having a little bit more of a bird's eye view of how the developers and the teams are reacting to this, because me too, we have been so close to the game for such a long time, you can't really judge it anymore, like, from a normal, like, gamer perspective. And then seeing all those amazing kind of, obviously there was feedback as well that we kind of needed to address and things. More on that in a second. But it was just so fun to see how everyone kind of was like, no, we have something here. Like, people are enjoying it and they're getting it and they're like having fun playing the game. And that was really great to see from that perspective as well. Like, just overall.
And the moments like people almost getting eaten by the sandworm, right? You know, those are very tense moments that happen in the game, and just seeing the reactions for people has been fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was one thing I really enjoyed was also like watching people coming in. I don't want to say skeptics, but they kind of, as they hit the beats of the game, as they progress through the game, in the beginning they're like, okay, this is this and this is this, and they kind of, and then like they're like, wait, you can combine the suspensor belt and the Shiga claw, and you can, oh wait, you can do these things. Oh, cool! I got and suddenly the game, like, it's opening up more and more, and they're really starting to understand the philosophy of how we approach the development with the sandbox, right? So, I don't know. As I saw people experience, I was just like, oh god, they're seeing it and doing it. It's
they
great.
get it. They have those light bulb moments that you were hoping for, right?
Yeah, and they just were growing more positive as they played more, right? And that to me is huge. It's really important.
Yeah. And it's, as I mentioned, that are the things that are really great to see from kind of an outside perspective as well.
And it was good, it's the first slide was showing this, right? It's just the first 20 hours, so it's just a taste of the game, right? It's just the very beginning of Act 1. We have so much more to show, and
Which
the best parts are here to
the
come.
rest, quite a bit, like a little bit of the stream as well. But going back to the beta weekend, there were, of course, some things that weren't that great, that didn't go as planned. One of those moments was, of course, the PvP moment in the broadcast, and when it comes to melee combat specifically. But we have actually worked on this and addressed it. Scott, maybe you can give a bit of context
so
to that.
we were aware of this issue. We've been in closed beta for a year and a half almost now, right? The new combat came in August of last year. And we've been making tweaks based on feedback and playtests that we've been doing. So going into the beta, we knew that there was that issue around stamina and, you know, what would happen if it ran out. And we'd already been working on it for over a month to try to fix it. So we patched out a change to it. Do you want to go over the details of that?
I mean, the high level changes it's something like this now, right? So heavy and slow blade have been separated as attacks. So a heavy staggers people now, and then a slow blade finishes them off, like, or goes into the slow blade attack. So you actually, now holding the button, you'll actually do a heavy attack. All attacks have now got proper stamina costs attached to them. And then in addition, if you're in a place where you're getting into the stun lock situation, you get an ability which is called Second Wind. It just pops on. It starts to restore your stamina bar quickly so you can dodge out of any sort of stun lock in that situation. So yeah, we've been doing balance around stamina costing on everything. We've been doing balance around the way, you know, attacks work. I think it's all working pretty well. Scott and I did a fair bit of PvP ourselves.
We're pretty bad at it.
On the top of a shipwreck.
Did you do well?
Yeah, one.
Day one, and Joel won day two. Maybe?
I think you won day one, but that was because on the second day I slotted the Bene Gesserit technique, the Mentat technique, which allowed me to avoid his voice power. And then he wasn't able to get me anymore. So then it was fun. Like it's fun to see how
approach.
how the dynamics work, right? So it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, I think we're still, you know, we put it on the closed beta. We're getting feedback from people and testing. But one thing is important to stress, right? It's a live game, and we're going to continue to patch and update. So we'll be paying a lot of attention to what happens as the game goes live and as people are playing. And, you know, we're here to make the game better. That's our job, so.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautifully said. Thank you. But enough just a dry talk. Let's jump into some gameplay. So we actually have an example of group gameplay. I'm like, that word is just not as
I thought you were going to, when you said dry examples, I thought you were going to break out the wine. But let's.
Maybe I should. Maybe I would go better with alcohol. But yes, so we have some group gameplay, mid game actually.
Yeah, mid-ish game.
We can probably just comment on it as
Sure.
well, what we're seeing and how it's different from what people have seen in the beta specifically.
Sure, you want.
Sure, yeah, I can go. So if you played to the Vermilius Gap, you know, the journey is still very isolated to yourself, right? And your sand bike, and you have a small base. As you're moving into the next areas, like the Hagga, or this is the Rift, right? You unlock the buggy, and the great thing about the buggy is it allows you to start mining from your vehicle, and the resource requirement as you go further and further into the game is more intense. But the buggy and other systems like that allow you to increase your harvest rate also.
Yep.
And this is a fantastic part, right? Just
Yeah.
moving around, going to the different resources, either switching yourself to the turret, or if you have a friend, having the friend man the mining laser, right? And then being able to harvest resources.
Yeah, the buggy's a multi-seat vehicle, right? So when you get to the mid-game, it's good to start crafting that, right? And then you can get out there and you can harvest. It has a huge inventory space as well, compared to like the sand bike or what the players can carry. Our philosophy of design with the game, like I've seen people asking for more inventory space on their character, but our philosophy of design for the game was that you build vehicles and they become your inventory space. You can see how big this is and how much volume it can hold. So the buggy really is like your mining vehicle of choice as you get into the mid-game. And if you're playing with friends, someone's on the turret, someone's in the driver's seat, you can have a friend in the passenger seat as well. You can bring multiple people, but you can also just like do this alone, jump between seats. In the interaction menu, you just select, I want to drive now, I want to sit in the turret seat and mine. But I want to talk a little bit about this location, because we're in this place called the Hagga Rift. And as you can see, it's this dark, gloomy, it's basically a geological ditch. And Herbert talked about this in the book. He talked about the folk of Pan and Graben. And this Graben are these big ditches, these big chasms that you have on Dune, on Arrakis. And in here, it's like the sunlight doesn't really penetrate to the bottom. And down here, there's been this ongoing war of attrition between the Atreides and the Harkonnen over this shipwreck, which is central to this area. And then as you come up out of the Hagga Rift, you come back into these other areas of the map, and it's like, it's a different style and tone to the desert. And I know people have been concerned, or at least been worried that like everything's one biome, but as you go down into the Rift, you feel it's a very different place. And shout out to our world director, Jeff, like one of his big key points about the world was making sure that we had a lot of verticality. And I think Hagga Rift is like an absolutely perfect example of how you can just keep going down and down through these galleries, and there's bases built up through the entire side. It's just this really fun place to be.
It's like, make it deeper, make it deeper.
Exactly.
I remember he mentioned that.
And this is where all the lights come into play. So headlights on vehicles, personal lights on players come in. At this point, this is where you start bringing things, and yeah, it's fun.
And it's so huge because then you fly in with an ornithopter too. It's like wide, and yeah, it's really fun to explore that way too.
And the music and the setting and the atmosphere when you're down, right? You've been in the harsh desert and the Vermilius Gap with like the bright lights on you the entire time, going like from shadow to shadow to preserve water. When you get down there, like the music team's done a very good job of just setting the atmosphere. It feels almost cool when you're down there.
That's our base in the distance there too,
Yeah,
I think, where we're heading. So you can see the wreckage of like the war. You can see that's a deserter base. Like because of the war of attrition that's been happening here, some of the Atreides and Harkonnen have deserted, and they've set up little camps around here, and they create like, they're obviously hazardous. But now we're coming to a base that we created for this, and this is the Atreides base building set. Yeah. And this kind of, I think this is this is a great example of what you can do outside of the square blocks that everybody was seeing in beta because they only had access to the first couple of sets.
Yeah, and what's important as you get into the mid-game, you start building up your infrastructure, and that's just as important as your equipment or your vehicles. So even if you lose a vehicle, right, like you make your buggy and you get unlucky enough to get eaten by a sandworm, like the the infrastructure will allow you to get back on your feet way quicker than that first.
Can
way game.
can we stop for a second and show a pro tip here? I
Yeah.
really want to pro tip something. So, can someone
Absolutely.
go and use a chest?
Yes. Oh, you want to mention my favorite thing?
So if you go to the wait, is that a chest? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in a chest in the game and you have a vehicle anywhere on your land claim, you can go to the top of the inventory on the left there where it says backpack. Where it says backpack on the left-hand side, whoever's driving, up there.
up
Yep.
there,
And
yeah.
click the
Yes.
drop down, and you can select the vehicle storage. This is a massive quality of life for getting things in and out of your vehicles.
Yes.
Because we know it's a little bit hidden. It's not the easiest thing to find. But once you know about this, it ups your quality of life in the game immensely because you can just drive in with a buggy full of stuff, go into your base, click any chest, click on the storage drop down, and start taking things out of the back of that vehicle.
It's something that the beta test suggested, isn't it? Like directly?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was something
Yep.
people were asking for during the closed beta, and we
Exactly.
implemented it. Yeah.
Another thing that I mentioned before, which is such a small quality of life thing, but we have that too, is you don't have to empty your chest before you can move them.
Oh, exactly.
That's
yeah.
just like that's
Yes.
just a complete mind-blowing quality of life gem to me. That's like so nice.
Yeah. So the game works in these phases of like, in the beginning, you need a sand bike to get off walking around, right? Then you move to the phase where you want a buggy to help you to harvest and gather resources. And then you move to the phase where you want to start building your first ornithopter. And so we have an example of this here. And the vehicle building in the game is very cooperative, right? You can see that these different, we're now adding permissions to allow people to help us to work on this ornithopter. So this, these guys are all in a group. And so people can cooperatively build. And of course, I think this is the medium, the assault ornithopter, as we call it. So it's the medium tier. But the largest ornithopter, the transport ornithopter, also requires, a lot of parts and a lot of people. So it's kind of part of the way we designed this was to make sure that we had this collaborative building system in the game, both for buildings and for vehicles.
This is my favorite part of the game, just the building the vehicles actually physically in the world, right? Putting the pieces there, working with your friends to make all the parts of them, and then like mixing and matching the different modules to make the vehicle, fit the role that you want to use the vehicle with for that moment.
Yeah, and vehicles come with different module sets, right? So you can put inventories on some. You can, like we talked about the buggy. You can actually have a rocket turret on top of the buggy, which I think you
Exactly.
saw in the combat trailer earlier.
Yeah.
You saw the buggy firing rockets. So you can have different types of things on the different vehicles, and we'll continue to expand that post-launch as well, making the vehicles more and more useful with utility. Yeah, it's fun, right? And then I guess the other side of this is that we can start talking about variants and swatches, which is our
He's actually
customization
going to
system.
change in a second. We'll
Yeah.
actually see that.
So
there we
we-
go.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
Atreides ornithopter.
these guys are aligned with the Atreides.
Boo.
So here we just switched out the Atreides. And a variant, just to put the distinction in place, a swatch allows you to change the color sets, but a variant allows you to change the physical visual.
The actual
so this
model,
is
yeah.
this is the shape of the Atreides. It's got the hawk-like lines. It's got the sharp angles.
Boo.
And the Harkonnen have more of an insectile kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
And so this is and you earn these variants in this case by leveling up in the factions, which is a part of the mid game. Which we aren't really showing a ton of that today, but as you join a faction, go through their quest lines, you earn access to these kind of variants and things like that, and then you're able to use the Atreides colors and swatches and variants.
Yeah, both on vehicles and your armor, right? So
Yes, vehicles,
you-
armors.
You
Yep.
can represent with your Harkonnen clothes,
Yes.
running in the deep desert,
Yes.
perhaps.
And that's it's important to note that like a lot of our philosophy around this was as well, like you create, so let's say you create a tier 4, like a mid-tier armor set, and it's like a scout armor. You can variant swap that to look like any other scout armor in the game. You can't turn it into a heavy armor or a combat armor because we want people to understand in PvP what they're fighting. But you can change it into any other visual of a scout armor, and it's the same with social clothing. It's the same with, obviously combat armor, and it's the same with still suits,
Yeah.
which I mentioned, which are kind of our 4 major armor types in the game.
And as you mentioned, oh sorry.
No, I
And
was
that's
just going to say social medium, social scout, combat, and
Still suits.
Still suits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they're showing right now is the vulture mode and
Yes.
the ornithopters. So
Sorry.
ornithopters are great, right? Because you have your helicopter mode where you can move in all directions. You can switch to the vulture mode, and then it's more of like a glider where you're going up and down to gain speed.
Yep. Yeah, so-
basically a airplane mode and a helicopter mode, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
Sort of.
it's like a hover mode and a glide
Yeah.
mode, right?
Yeah.
And the vulture mode allows you to be more maneuverable. You see that they have a boost module. Actually, this is fun. Like when you get to too high in altitude, you start increasing your fuel consumption, which prevents people from going too high in the game. Also good to know for people who want to stay, close to the ground. Yeah, and now we're flying through an area of the map known as the Shield Wall, which is on the para-northern side of the Hagga
Yeah.
Basin. We can talk about the para-directions at some point, because that's always awkward and weird. But because para-north is really south in relative terms to the map. But these are rocky areas, so the sandworm is less of a threat up here, but the enemies are much harder, and the resources you gather up here are much more value, right, to what you're doing. So these are areas where you harvest.
And the first time you're coming here, you don't actually have an ornithopter. More than likely,
Yes.
you don't, right? So
Yes.
then you're having to make the choice of like, do you bring your buggy here, which is really high, really hard to get to, or do you go with your sand bike and try
Yep.
to climb up the wall? So it's ultimately it's about choice, how you go to each of the biomes, and then which vehicles you bring, right, which enable different mechanics based on the one you want.
Yeah, and like this area we're in now is known as the Uldum as well, and the Uldum has a little more plant growth and a little more greenery, and that's because the Uldum is an area where they were doing experiments on some of the land, and we won't talk too much about it, but yeah, we're gonna fly over. I guess this is
our second base.
this is our
yes.
second base on the Shield Wall. Yeah, so this is the
Lots of
guild
shields.
base. So this is further into the game. People have progressed a bit. They're probably so we divide the game into 4 phases: survive, protect, expand, and control. So this would be here. You're either on the expand or the control part of the game. The sort of last 2 phases, right? So you've got a bigger guild. You're working with a larger group of people potentially. You can still play the game solo at this point. Everything just takes a little longer and is a little harder to do on your own, right? And that's you can still do it. You can craft these ornithopters. There's no problem. But we encourage people to play together and work together in a multiplayer game.
And we're showing off some building sets we've never shown before.
Yes.
These will be the Twitch drops.
These are
Yes,
Twitch drops. Yeah.
exactly. So the one this is actually that one's Jome building set, but those round windows and the ceiling pieces, pretty much everything that's more metal than white stone, those are actually going to be Twitch drops that you will get. So they kind of expand on the existing Jome tier set, which I love them. I think they're very cool.
Yeah.
They're really cool looking.
Yeah, and you can see what we'd expect a guild base to look like, right? Lots of production going on. It was something that we were really pushy on in the game development, making sure that the fabricators actually show the items being crafted as they
Yeah.
craft, so you see them
So cool.
form up inside the fabrication units. And yes, I know this isn't exactly something from Dune lore. This is one of the places where I was like, I have to make a concession to the game. They don't have fabricators, they're not mentioned in the lore, but it's fine because it's
It
cool.
looks cool.
Rule
Yeah.
of cool in some cases.
Absolutely.
And this
there's-
is a vehicle fabricator, yeah.
There's also circuits. Have we ever talked about circuits before?
Nope, not actively. You can please feel free.
They're pretty neat. It's not as intense as Factorio, right? Making blue science or anything like that. But you are able to set up different circuits in your base, so you can have some containers feeding into some fabricators feeding into others. You'll never have 100% automation like you would get in a factory builder game, but it does enable you as you get to mid game to start having a fair bit of automation in the game when you're playing, because water and electricity become quite a burden if you don't start upgrading your gear and the infrastructure like we were talking about before. So we introduced passive ways to get water, which is a huge help, because water in the mid and to the end game even is really important through all aspects, not just survival but also crafting.
For my fellow lore nerds out there, we call the passive water generation wind traps.
I was just about to say there are actually some wind traps on this, and
Yeah.
we've seen some while we walked by them as well. And yeah, it's just you also see here how much bigger those refineries are. We also saw a spice refinery as well, actually.
Yeah, there was
the
spice
round
refineries there,
tubes.
yep. Yeah, and that we just saw a room with some decorations in it as well.
Yeah, we
just to you can pimp up your area in a sense, put out holograms. It was quite funny because here's a fun anecdote from development. The artist
no.
made a bunch of the artist made a bunch of pot plants. for people to put in their bases, and I was like, guys, it's Dune.
There is no water to water those
So we have a
things.
lot of holograms
In your
planted now.
buildings, yeah.
I was like,
They
we
look
can
great,
have.
though.
Then I keep saying the word holograms. Sorry, everyone. Solido projections.
Solido projections.
Solido projections of
You'd be
plants.
yelling at yourself.
Oh my god, I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad if I
You're like-
wasn't me right now.
If you like decorations, you need to explore quite a bit.
Yes.
Right? You know, we don't unlock them all.
Yes.
Go to trade posts. Go to places where there are people. You can unlock tons of the stuff that you're seeing around in the
Yes.
base here.
Exactly.
You have to work a little bit for
You'd
it.
have to work
though.
a little
Yeah.
bit for it. Yeah.
Like explore, find people that will sell you
and
stuff.
and obviously these doors,
Or-
the pentashield doors and things as well. Like once you reach a certain stage in Dune, you can put shielded doors out, so you don't have to have doors that open and close.
Exactly.
And that's really useful for when you you have flying vehicles, you want to land in hangars, you don't have to wait for a door to open.
Some of the cool stuff I've seen in beta is they will make a huge base, but it's kind of covering a road. So they'll open up
yep.
the middle of it and then set the permissions on the pinto shields so that you can actually drive
Public,
through it. So
yes.
you can't go into their base, but you can still go through the middle of their
Yes.
base,
Yeah.
which is nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Good guy players.
Good guy players, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually gonna go up to the roof now and build a transport ornithopter.
nice.
Great.
Which
No.
not
No.
yet. Okay, not yet.
No, we're not.
Excuse me.
No, we're not. We're wrong.
gonna run around the base a little
not
bit more.
wrong. We're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
we're still
Oh.
doing other things.
That's in. Yeah. Okay.
But
few ornithopters.
What
hovering
we'd
around.
like to do is, because we're actually going to go to a social hub later on, and we'd like to throw that to, unfortunately we can do only Twitch, so I'm sorry YouTube, we'll love you over there too. It's just our bot is being a bit difficult. So we'd like to do a poll, throw that to Twitch chat only for today. Which of the social hubs you'd like to see? We have 2 available in the game right now. One is Arcane, the other one is Hardcore, and you can choose which of those you'd like to see today. So we give you like a few minutes to vote on that while our rock stars and wizards behind the scenes are preparing that poll for you, if it's not running already. And yeah, we can talk a little bit.
One of the cool things that they were just showing there is the vehicle backup tool.
Yes.
I don't know if we've talked about that on stream too much, but once you've built a sand bike or a light ornithopter, you can actually build a tool to hide it, or like, what's the lore reason, Joel?
Let's go with the Ritchie's perfected miniaturization
Sure,
technology,
sure.
and the player is able to miniaturize their vehicle, and it only works for vehicles that have nothing in their inventory.
Correct. Yeah.
And 2 types of vehicle: the sand bike and
Yes.
the light scout ornithopter.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we're flying past.
Highly recommend always using it, right? When
Yes.
you're going to a location,
Yes.
land, store your vehicle.
Yes.
Don't let it get destroyed by a sandstorm.
I
Exactly.
learned that the hard way myself too, so I will never do that mistake ever again.
I see. We've gone with spoiler
Ooh.
territory here, and we're flying over the giant power station of Misatariel.
Don't look.
I don't want to talk too much about it, but we'll let people figure that out in the game.
It looks cool. From
It is my
above,
favorite
so it's like-
location.
Me
It's-
too.
It's
Mine
really
too.
absolutely amazing.
Mine too.
And the
Mine
story
too.
involved in it is
So
really cool.
please look forward to it.
And there we have someone doing their vulture roll, which is very nice. Can you hit your scanner as well, whoever's flying?
I'm not sure to do that. Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like that's vehicles obviously get like players got hand scanners probably in the beta, but now you're up to the stage where you actually have a scanner and you're scanning entire like islands by pumping C. So the idea is that again, as you progress, everything just takes a step up in how quickly you can do things. We wanted the game to feel, well, you've put in the effort to get this vehicle, we're going to give you the convenience of being able to scan an entire island very quickly, right?
Yeah.
This is a trade post. This is the Crossroads trade post.
Look at the poll. It's super tight. I love that. Like right now, Arcane is slightly winning. So let's go,
Harco Village
Harkonnen.
is cooler.
I agree though. Well, both
We're going to see some footage from Harko no matter what we do.
super
Sure,
cool,
that's
though.
true.
Both are super cool, but I do like.
Yeah,
Harko
it's
Village
just
better.
because you're an evil person and
I
you
am.
like Harkonnens.
I am just like
Something
evil
about
for
that
life.
whipping noise.
No, you know the fun part is I always try to go evil in like games where you have a choice, and then I end up
course.
good anyway.
Yeah,
like,
because
bad
you
for
can't
the-
bring yourself to do
Feel
it.
bad for those
No,
characters,
I
right?
was just-
Yeah.
yeah.
So these are the pilots. They were disabled in the beta. You may have met one at the first trade post if you were playing.
And we're going to Arcane, by the way.
We're going to
one.
Arcane?
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
It's fine.
so we're going to go and visit Arcane. All right, that's cool. The pilot only takes cash. So you can't have credit. You have to have cash. So we're heading to Arcane.
She doesn't use it on sunscreen, that's for sure, because she was really sunburned. Like, so let's just get that out there. Yes. But yeah, you need to have the cache on you as
Yeah.
well.
One of the features in the game that we haven't really spoken about too much. I mean, well, we have a bit. We've spoken, but I don't think people picked it up in the beta. Oh, here we go. Well, I'll let us arrive because this is cool. This is Arakeen. And as we arrive in Arakeen, so one of the features we have in the game is the CommuniNet system. And when a player opens their CommuniNet, they can choose radio stations to listen to in the game, a la like a Fallout game or a GTA game. And this guy, Finno Gary, he runs this trash shop, but he actually has a show on the Atreides radio. And if you listen to the show, it's his daughter talking about their adventures on how they got all this salvage that shows up. So it's kind of fun to just like narratively listen. You know, we tried to connect everything in the world. This is, again, I want to make this point because I feel like I see it sometimes online and it's a little, let's say, disheartening. People, we were advertising the game and saying the word MMO. And then people were like, oh, they took all that off. And we took it off because we do feel like this is a huge world completely worth exploring with lots of other people. But it's not an MMORPG. And people were getting confused by that.
Yeah.
So we took it down. But I think it's clear when you look at places like our social hubs, our exchange system, our banking system, that we have a lot of elements from those style of games here, right? So yeah, we're looking at the exchange right now. Players can post things on the exchange, and this is the banker.
bank.
Would you like to dip
One of the great things here is you can actually store items and credits, right? So say you're going to take a long vacation, you're worried about your base getting destroyed for some reason, you can actually fly to Arakeen and dump a bunch of stuff in here.
I was actually thinking is like one of the great things here is his mustache.
Sure, yeah,
I
that's
was
also
expecting it to
fantastic.
come in on the mustache.
I mean, we've all seen the,
Fantastic mustache. You also pay taxes here.
Yes.
Like, because
Yeah.
you need to, like for the bigger
Gotta keep your
sub
shields
fees, you
up.
actually need to make sure you have your taxes paid to the
and this is where you pay. This is the
Emperor?
imperial consulate, as we call it.
Yeah.
This is where you go to pay your taxes to the Imperium. So the first sub-fief console that you place on Arrakis, the basic one that you place in the starting area, you don't have any taxes to pay on that. But once you get a bit further into the game and you start building bigger bases, you pay taxes.
You again?
Once you start expanding that land claim, which you do through these land claim extenders, you start paying more tax. So the idea is that the larger guilds who have more members, who are more capable of achieving things in the game, they have a higher tax rate because they're building out larger spaces. And that, that's our way of making it fair for people who only play solo as well. Like, so they don't have as much tax to pay.
The other important thing about the cities is that's where you really progress through the faction storylines, right? So here's where you're going to come and officially join the Atreides or join the Harkonnens and, start vying for the Landsraad system and getting involved in the politics of the entire world.
And this is where the advanced trainers are as well.
Yeah.
For people who want to progress past the basic level of training in their particular chosen classes.
Except for Derek.
Oh, Derek, the planetologist, he's everywhere.
He's just traveling around.
He's everywhere.
He's a wandering
He's-
mentor.
he's-
You can
he's,
find him anywhere.
Yeah, he's here. He's there.
He's
He's everywhere.
Derek Schnauer. Okay, no, enough. Sorry.
No, but you have contracts here, of course, as well,
Yes,
and
contracts,
specific
yeah.
vendors, so they have a lot of things to sell as well.
Yes, and the main story brings you to these locations as well.
Yes. So now we actually get a glimpse of the overland.
Yes.
Which
So
is
you can
one
use
part
the
of the
pilots in the trade post to fly to the hubs like we showed, and you use those same pilots to get back. But once you have your own ornithopter, you can just fly to the edge of the Hagga Basin map, and you'll get a prompt asking you if you'd like to go to the overland map. And this is the overland map. And this is, again, one of the things that I think kind of breaks us away from your standard survival game. This is where we have the ability to infinitely expand this game, where we have multiple maps that players can go to. I think this is where you go to reach the deep desert. This is where you go to reach several of the story maps. Right now we've landed on a fuel deposit. And we're just picking up a bit of fuel, refueling our ornithopter on there. We're able to expand here for a long time, and this is kind of part of what, again, we wanted to do to make this a coherent universe, right? And make Dune feel like something that, we're going to be working on and adding to for a long time.
So post-launch, there will be new locations that show up here.
Yes.
We'll have events that have locations here for short durations, right? For
Yep.
to shake things up, and eventually when we release huge content drops, they'll be accessible through the overland map.
the overland map.
Exactly. One other thing that you can find in the overlap map, which also goes into the story, that we really would like to talk a little bit more about, because we haven't as you mentioned, it takes a while to also get the story going. So people during the beta weekend haven't actually seen much of that.
Yeah.
So via the overlap map, you can also access some of these story dungeons. And we actually do have some footage of one of those dungeons that await you. And Joel and Scott can probably give a little bit of context what we're seeing.
Part of Act 2.
So here we're not going to spoil too much of the story, but this is kind of the theme of Act 2, right? You've moved from a survivor doing the trials, now you're getting involved in the politics.
Oh, look, the kitten is back.
Yeah, so there's a lot more interaction with NPCs, dialogue, there's a lot more cinematics, and a lot of locations outside the Hagga Basin that you'll be going to.
One of my favorite characters too.
Yeah, she's
I love her. Everyone does.
In the Cone of Silence.
We didn't mention the Cone of Silence, but you're inside the Cone of Silence here, and the game actually dampens all the sound outside of it when you enter, which is pretty cool.
To be distributed in the water supply of this water shipper. The act of
Chore murky for law people who understand.
What is that, by the way? I actually don't know what
The
that
Assassin's
is.
Handbook describes certain poisons. Chore murky is poison in the drink.
That's actually something I didn't know. Like, I was wondering about that earlier. Like, I didn't know what that term is.
So you see we have a dialogue system in the game where you can make choices based on several of the things that you've done in the game as well. Your background at the start has some payoff here.
This water shipper is wealthy.
Again, it's not like, we're not making an Obsidian RPG with all of the choices that something like that has, but we're doing a level of this that's above and beyond what most survival games do, I think.
And you will be interacting with some Dune characters that people
But look
are
at her
familiar
last
with.
name.
Yeah,
Dune
yeah.
fans probably recognize already that last name.
Yep.
All right, so we're skipping ahead here. We've jumped to the part of the mission where you're heading towards the water shipper's mansion, which is in the Imperial Basin just outside of Arakeen. The player is being sent there to assassinate and poison this water shipper on behalf of Alara Tuek. And so we come to this new level on the overland map.
Yeah, so your job is to infiltrate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, she's talking and explaining the mission, but I can't hear it, so I'm just... But
One of the things we wanted to do is make sure all the abilities still work in these, so it is still very sandboxy.
Yeah.
There will always be multiple approaches. You
Yeah.
know, if you have a Shigawire Claw, you can use that to grappling hook over some areas. If not, then you're gonna have to be a little bit more stealthy and avoid the searchlights.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where our philosophy is like we give people all these tools, but it's a sandbox. Play the way you want to play. Like here, it's we have to find a guy called Yargan, who's her contact.
He's supposed to be waiting for you by one of the storage sheds.
And so like it's like we're quite nice to people. You might get spotted, but you can escape the lights quickly.
Yeah.
That's the one we found here.
You can read the dialogue here. It's fun. One of those ones.
And again, depending on your background, they actually get different choices to to the dialogue.
Character creation is important.
Why don't we just have this conversation in that spotlight over there?
This he's a grumpy
I
guy.
agreed to help Alara with this. It was because her old man got me out of a few scrapes back in the day. But if you get caught, we ain't met.
Especially when he talks about the place.
Got it?
You'll appreciate this option.
Good.
I
Then
know.
ask your questions.
It's like, so which background?
Guarded like a princess's virtue.
Which background do you have to get that option though?
That one's for everyone for free.
It's for everyone. That's for free. Okay, there you go. I love that we have it in a video too.
You can listen, smartass.
But there's so many little Easter eggs and fun things that you also wrote, like especially also for like weapon
weapon
descriptions and things.
descriptions, item
Super
descriptions.
fun. Like everything's connected. Like for those of you who do like lore and who know Dune lore as well, you will find a lot of connections. But also for the ones who don't,
It's been a while.
Yeah.
it's super fun to just.
Follow the path.
He's also
Find
explaining
things.
the different ways that you can approach this quest right now. So he's sort of explaining to you, there's like two paths that you can take. Like you don't have to go this way, you don't have to go that way. Here's how you can get in, there's how you can get in, right? So as a player, you can approach this, again, in kind of that sandbox approach. It's like, again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not an immersive sim where you have
Yeah.
like the Dishonored level of,
Yeah.
but you can definitely find alternate paths into the mansion to achieve your mission. And I think that like a shout out to the story content team with Bernard and the boys, as I call them. They've done a great job with these, setting them up. And here's what Scott was talking about, where you know, oh, like I've set the game up in this way. I'm a Bene Gesserit. I'm just going to stun this guy, and then I'll be able to walk past him, and he won't even notice me. He won't call up. He won't call the guards because he doesn't see me, right? And so you can use your abilities, your skills that you've picked up in the game to just pass through these areas, and yeah, it's kind of fun, right? And we just wanted to show that we have more than just, you know, the basic survival game. There's way more going on here.
Yeah. Especially, like, I think it takes about, if you, let's assume you ignore everything else, because there's a lot of choices for you, how you want to approach Dune Awakening and what there's to do. But let's assume you're only going for the main story and like those cinematics and things. So it takes you, I did talk to Niels about it as well, it takes about 30 hours until the story really gets going.
Yeah, if you're playing by yourself, just experiencing all the survival elements and going at it alone, probably 30 hours to get to part 2.
Yeah, it's deliberately like, I'm not defensive about Act 1, but the first part of the game is deliberately somewhat light, just to give people that, like, learn the world, acclimatize yourself, like follow up on the Fremen. You have the Fremen trials, and it's super interesting, and then we start introducing and layering the politics of the universe and more of this stuff, and more of your personal story, like what's going on, why are you the one being asked to do this, what's happening, right?
And ultimately, it is a survival game first, right? So the player needs to learn how to survive in Arrakis, right? And it's a very harsh environment. There's a lot of mechanics to figure out, and then, you know, you have to make your way through there and figure out how to get outside of Hagga Basin, right, before you can experience, you know, more of the politics and intrigue that are going on.
Exactly. And I really love that we have, I mean, the beginning of the game is kind of story driven, right? You get context to what, where you, well, a little bit of context what's actually happening. You have a person that talks to you and helps you at the beginning, and then, as you mentioned, it goes more into learning the actual mechanics and the tutorialization of the game. And we give you time to get a bit acquainted with everything, or not everything, but a lot of the things, like the basic mechanics, and then we like approach you again with the story a bit later on. And I really love that too.
I love this guy, but we're cutting now because we're not going to spoil too much of what's going on.
No, exactly. So obviously we don't want to show too much. There's more to this dungeon. What we're going to do now, though, is we're actually going to watch another video that's going to lead us into our next segment. So enjoy.
Cool.
Intense.
Power. Given the right lever, you can move a planet. In Dune Awakening, your path to power leads you through the great houses. But only accomplished guilds may earn their place among the Atreides or Harkonnen. Swear your allegiance and contribute to their rise in desert power. The pledge is only the beginning. You have come far, and now it's time to take control of the Landsraad. The Landsraad is the council of great houses that make decisions that impact all the players on all the servers in your world. Your goal, and that of your guild, is to secure their votes so that your faction, the Harkonnen or Atreides, can take control. To secure their votes and sway them to your side, you must complete specific house requirements on the Landsraad board. Alone or together with your guild, your efforts can move the needle. Be the first to fulfill a house requirement to not only secure their vote, but also reap their many rewards. Whether you enjoy PvE or PvP, there are many paths to victory. If you prefer the relative safety of the shield wall, there are many activities that will not put you into direct conflict with other players, while still contributing to your faction's rise to power. House Torvald wants you to eliminate sandflies. Rush in, or pick off the deserters one by one with your sniper rifle. House Rashis wants a delivery of ground cars. Join up with friends and build strongholds for large-scale production and deliver them safely to the House representative by ground or air. Large-scale production is costly and will require a lot of resources. To be able to craft certain high-tier items, you will also need the most sought-after resource of all: spice. You can buy spice from spice merchants or on the player-run exchange. And it can even be found in smaller pockets behind the shield wall. But to collect industrial quantities, you must venture into the unknown. The deep desert beckons. Here, violent Coriolis storms sweep across the vast expanse of sand, resetting the map every week, revealing new resources to mine and points of interests to explore. This ever-changing environment offers endless exploration, but also endless conflict. Each house in the Landsraad desires a specific control point in the deep desert. Seize it and hold it over time to gain their vote. Fortify it and be ready for a fight. Other players will soon come to take it from you. The deep desert is also home to frequent spice blows, offering large quantities of the precious melange. You need a lot of spice. Once you've located a spice blow, move your harvesters in place to collect. Just be ready to defend it with your life. After a week of politics, manufacturing, and conflict, one side emerges victoriously. The Harkonnen have seized the Landsraad, and the leaders of the player guilds who contributed to their victory all get to vote for a decree that will impact everyone on a server belonging to that world. They choose to unlock exclusive weapon imports rights. By decree of the Landsraad Council, under the seal of His Imperial Majesty, a trade consortium has been authorized to visit Arrakis, providing Harkonnen players with exclusive access to a unique weapons vendor in Hagga Village. As the Harkonnen Landsraad term begins, the race for control in the next term
Welcome back. No technical problems at all. It's all fine. No one would have noticed if you didn't say anything, Scott.
Sorry. That's my job.
Pretty sure I couldn't hear it, but I'm pretty sure it cut off mid-video.
It probably did. Yes, I couldn't hear it either. But the video is going to be available after the stream anyway, so you can watch it in all its glory. Landsraad. Talking about Landsraad, so let's go to the next segment. Endgame and Landsraad. So we know people have, of course, expectations of what the end game and Landsraad, and especially Deep Desert, looks like, and what it's for, and how people will use the Deep Desert, and how it works. A lot of those things. But I think before we go into more details and show some really exciting gameplay as well, Joel, I think it'd be cool to talk about the vision for what the end game is supposed to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, going back to when I joined the project, like, so this is 5 years ago, right? And we were talking about what is a good survival game, like, because Dune, we were making a Dune survival game, and we were talking about what is the vision for an end game in Dune. And the kind of the goal and the idea, at least in the beginning, was like we started with, hey, like you start by surviving in the desert, and it's that raw nature versus mankind kind of thing. It's the sun, it's the sandworms, it's the storms, but then you move into this new mode of survival, which is political survival, which is the end game of the game needs to be about these big forces, right? The Imperium is made up of the great houses. The Landsraad, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, Chome, all of these things have an influence, and you as a player are just a small cog in the machine, but we want you to be able to feel like you're participating in this big umbrella system. And so we started there, and then we talked about, like, there's an element of, like, I think very technical game design here where we talk about player activity cycles through the week. I was looking at, like, games like Rust. Rust has their server resets, which is great for, like, people to start building up, and people really enjoy that cycle. But a lot of people also love having their stuff and not losing it. And so we talked about, like, okay, what about a place, and in Dune it's perfect, right? You have these Coriolis storms, and there's scenes in the book where the sand is just tearing apart cliff faces and ripping down the things in the desert and revealing things from beneath the sand. And so we said, okay, what if we had a map, the Deep Desert, and in the Deep Desert, the landscape changes every week. How does that affect gameplay? And then we started there and we talked about, okay, what about if there's a cycle of events that we want players to go through? And again, this is a high-level design.
We might actually have an infographic or a visual asset for that, a week cycle of...
Oh, do we?
Yep.
Cool. Fun. You guys are on top of things. I know nothing. Oh,
No, not that
no,
one.
sorry. That's
Not this one.
Not that one. But okay. Either way, I can
Maybe
just
it's
keep,
not right. Maybe we didn't make
I
it
can
in
just
time.
keep talking.
Yeah,
Just
go
keep
for it.
talking. It's
Go
fine.
for
Sorry,
it.
everyone. I know it's just
Go for
boring
it.
old Joel. But like we wanted to approach this, right. So we were like, okay, what if there's a map that resets and the map changes every week so that it's an infinitely explorable space? And we worked backwards from there, and we said, how do we build a lot of our game systems towards this? So we started with the idea of, yes, the map resets. When would we want to reset the map? Let's say we reset it on the lowest player activity day of the week, right? Which tends to be a Tuesday night or a Wednesday in these kind of online games. And then we're like, okay, and then there's this activity we call scouting and cartography. And then we built a game mechanic around cartography and scouting, which I think we're going to show in a little bit. And that is, and maybe you saw it, and we definitely tutorialized it in the beta, you reveal parts of the map. And then we made it so that you can save those maps and sell them to other players. So we create a loop there for players who are scouts, and that happens, let's say, in a player activity week, it happens during the low ebb. The Deep Desert gets revealed. Everybody needs information. How do we make information a commodity? We create a cartography and a scouting system. Then once that information is gathered, people share it with their friends and their guilds. Then they start setting up what we call a logistics plan. How am I going to control the spaces in the Deep Desert that I want to control? What is my guild looking for? Are we looking for spice? Are we looking for unique schematics? Are we going after shipwrecks? Are we going after the ecology labs that have been revealed? Like, what are we doing this week? So then they go set up. And then the weekend, which is when the highest player activity count is, that's when people are online. And that's where people really participate in the activities in the Deep Desert, whether that is running ecology labs with their friends or shipwrecks or fighting over, like, control points in the Deep Desert. And then after the weekend, I should say, on top of this as an umbrella is the Landsraad. And the Landsraad are asking you to do activities that take place both in the Deep Desert, but also outside of the Deep Desert. Exactly. There's a lot of PvE stuff in there. And then at the end of that activity cycle, everybody votes. It sets a server-wide change, like a worldwide, I think we should say in our terminology. It changes every rule set in the world can be changed by the Landsraad. And then the Coriolis storm happens again on a Tuesday, and we start over again with a new weekly cycle. And this is kind of the vision and dream for how the end game should play out and how we would like it to work. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how that we've set everything up for this to be the case, but of course, no plan survives first contact with players. So another point I would like to make is just we're a live game. We'll continue to tweak and update these things. So, but let's maybe look at and talk about it. Yeah?
Yes, let's look at some gameplay. Actually, some activities that you might be wanting to do. So we have like actually a team here that will now go into the desert.
Okay, so we've gone through the overland map.
Yeah, we're
and
in the shield wall.
We're in the shield wall, which is the southern part of the deep desert.
It's the PvE area.
Correct. Yeah.
This is the PvE space.
It was important for us so that people that are scared of PvP or reluctant to get engaged with it, right, that they had a place in the deep desert that they could go to without, instantly getting killed as soon as you're coming through, like in warping in, right, gate camping or whatever from other games. And this is also where you set up your base of operations.
Yes.
The very first area, because the deep desert is gigantic. There's no water here.
Yes.
And you need to have the logistics set up, and like you can go there by yourself. Like I fly there on beta. I try to stay away from people because, as we said, we're not great at PvP necessarily.
People call it ratting. Right?
Yeah, ratting.
You can go in and rat.
Oh, I'm totally
rat
right.
raid.
Absolutely.
But just to point out one thing here, because these guys are using. So again, coming back to like how do we get towards this vision? We started with how do you build this is going to get wiped every week. How do we encourage people to build bases? Well, first of all, we created this blueprinting system. You bring the diagram of your base, you place it out, and you build it quickly, right? This is very fast. It doesn't take very long when you're with a few friends. You get a base put down, you build it up quickly. This is part of the logistics cycle of the deep desert.
And you can either bring the resources from Hagga Basin and all the vehicles that you're bringing with you, or you can harvest there's quite a bit of resources in the shield wall, so you can set this up.
So this is what's happening here. We're building a forwarding base.
Exactly. I was going to say that this is obviously a forwarding base because it is kind of very boxy again compared to like the actual home bases that we saw earlier. Because this is all about efficiency, right?
Yes.
And like fitting your the storages and the all the machines that you need. Now my brain just stopped working.
Fabricators.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we made a change, or not a change. It's just the building costs are different in the deep desert, so it costs half as much to build everywhere.
Building
and you
is
get 100%
faster.
when you're breaking things down. Just because we know you're going to be redoing this every week. There's going to be some loss, right? So we're trying to make it easy and accessible in the ways that we can, while still keeping the threat there.
Yes.
And the intensity, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it, right? Like the deep desert is a little bit about that tension as well, that feeling of like, so we're building here, it's the PvE area. I expect people to build their primary like weekly base in the PvE area and then maybe set out some logistics bases so that they can do things like refining spice. And that's where it becomes an interesting kind of like, we'll see how people play out these scenarios in the actual deep desert in the game, but this is kind of the expected behavior. This is what we hope people will do. And we've tried to build all the mechanics into place so that people can do this, right? And that's been a large part of it.
You also see co-op building here. There's actually several people working on this.
Yeah, everyone's working together, right?
Yeah,
and that's
which is super nice.
That's
too.
the guild focus as well. Like
Exactly.
it is a multiplayer game. It's really important to make sure that people can play together and do things together. And I think the fun part in this game and this style of game is that it extends beyond like the traditional MMO experience of like we can fight things together, right? And we can role play together, but you're not building things together, you're not crafting vehicles together, right? We have those options, which is nice.
And it's just cool to see how quick you can use the blueprint system to get like a gigantic base, right?
Yep.
Even though it's utilitarian, right? But it does what it needs, and it's quite impressive.
Yep.
I know that people were also wondering that you won't be able to, copy that your setup inside. So this is literally the blueprint is for the building itself. So everything inside.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You still have to put the placeables in.
So we're behind the shield wall. I think we've just left the base now.
Yeah, we're actually
and we're
just showing a little bit of the PvE area here.
So this is behind the shield wall, and then you come out into the deep desert. And this is like I think behind the shield wall there's also PvE elements here. This is the PvE space.
Yeah.
So there are things like shipwrecks that you can raid. There are like eco labs behind here. So there is a section of the deep desert. I know people are really worried about doing PvP. There's a whole section here. It's 24 kilometers long where you can actually go and like do the PvE part. And we're about to see. Well, this will take a few seconds.
We're actually
survey
We're in the middle of the survey.
surveying
So now we're surveying the land in this section, and we'll see the segment reveal itself. And this is like one of the PvE segments of the Deep Desert. And what you'll see here is that we've surveyed 1 square. And just to give some context, that's one of 81 squares within this map. So there are 81 of these squares. It's huge.
Yeah.
We're actually also seeing the sync chart that you mentioned earlier as well come into play.
So now I don't know whose name it is, but whichever player it is crafting a. They have surveyed. Now they're going to craft a sync chart. They have crafted a sync chart of the Deep Desert. It tells you in the information which sector of the Deep Desert, who created it, how long ago it was created, so you understand whether the information's out of date or in date. They're going to share that sync chart with their friends.
Yep.
And then their friends, hopefully, will be able to switch camera perspective and see their friend apply the sync chart, which saves them having to explore.
Yeah,
so this is that cartography loop.
You could go out with like a really quick ornithopter.
Look at this. That's the Deep Desert over there.
Oh, sure.
To the left.
But you can go out with like an exploration kit, right? That's really fast. That you can go around. You don't have much harvesting abilities, right? And then you scout the area, bring it back, and then your base can roll out with your transport ornithopters, your harvesters, sand crawlers.
Depending what your plan is for the day, which doesn't necessarily have to be PvP. There's actually a lot of other things,
exactly. I expect people in guilds to be figuring things out and how they're going to work together to do these things. But there's roles here, right? Like again, we tried to really build this game with different roles for different people within guilds.
Exactly.
So the idea is, maybe I'm just the scout, and that's what I do because I hate, going into fights. But I go out, I bring back the information. Then people who like building bases are planning like what our logistics are going to be and what we're going to be doing this week in the Deep Desert. What do we need to harvest? What do we need for our crafting? Are there uniques that we're looking for? Are there specific uniques? I think one of the really important points about the Deep Desert is that like the unique schematics, the Imperial permits, which maybe people saw, the purple ones, they're on a limited loot setup. So you don't get the same ones every week, and the layouts of the Deep Desert change. Here we see the trading system. The sync chart's been traded.
And those schematics you can only make a certain amount of times.
Yeah. And now we're going to consume the sync chart, and then we're going to open our map and see that the sector has been cleared, the same sector that was sync charted. So this is kind of cool. You can create copies of this and pass it off to your guild. You can create copies and sell them on the exchange to other players as well.
Yes, and while now they're actually building a transport ornithopter, we can actually quickly talk about the Coriolis Storm in combination with the map, because we actually have a visual asset here that shows how they can look like on the map.
We can talk about the rotation. So this is like, so let's see that we're going to see 3 weeks of Coriolis Storm changes to the map. So this is week 1. And then we move to, and you can see that there's like 1 eco lab, a shipwreck, and a cave there, right? And a small base, and some spice blows that have been marked. And then to the next week, the layout has changed. Where things are is different. There's a control point now in the bottom left. There's an eco lab in a different place, and a shipwreck that's been uncovered.
And there will be different loot and different
loot in all of them. And then we go 1 more week again. And now you can see that this is a bit larger. There's another control point. It's a different house control point now. Different spaces on the map. A couple of eco labs this time. 4 or 5 caves and the shipwreck. So you can sort of see how this changes and how this loot encourages exploration for people each week.
And that's 1 tile.
That's 1 section.
One of
81st.
1 of 81. Yeah. But I will say this: it's a very big desert with a lot of space. Yes. So there's not all the tiles are that populated each week. So people aren't like, there's not 15 eco labs in every square, right?
No.
Like it's a more big sparse, barren place. And this is also like important because if we want people to fight over things, we actually need to draw them to the same places to fight over specific things in PvP.
Yes. So for the ones who actually do want the PvP, they have a place to go where they know there's probably other players there as well.
Okay, so now we have a transport ornithopter. This is the largest flying vehicle that you can craft in the game. And this may be my favorite game mechanic because the transport ornithopter can pick things up. And I love it because it can pick up almost anything that is a vehicle.
Yes.
right, in the game. So
one of the things you'll see in the mid game is like the buggy is really hard to get to places, right? Even though it mines so
Yes.
much more than you can ever possibly mine yourself, but it's a pain, right, to get up on the shield wall or to get it out here.
So a good tactic with the buggy though is to use it as storage and use the transport
Yes.
ornithopter to pick
Yeah.
it up and carry it. Are we going to show an example of carrying? I guess we are.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are,
cool.
because
Yes.
what we're actually preparing for here is a spice harvesting mission.
So the team's going out to do some
yes.
spice harvesting.
So we are actually gonna
Okay.
pick up a
Yeah.
harvester.
So now we're coming out into what I call the real deep desert, right? This is actually what you think of when you think of Arrakis from the movies, right? So this is we just got the nice tutorial pop up talking about the deep desert.
Yes.
So this
perfect
is the
timing.
Arrakis that we know from the films. So Hagga Basin is like and it's taking a lot of the information that we have from the books and about like the different biomes and things and making it into a truly sort of interesting PvE experience. But this is the true deep desert of Arrakis. This is the place where people are scared to go. This is where the Fremen live. We're passing outside the shield wall now. This is where the War of Assassins and the PvP is allowed to
And
happen.
spice blow.
And you can see a spice blow in the distance, which draws people from miles around to go there, right? And I do want to say, this section here, if you turn the camera right and left, you can see that we have the shield wall. This is 24 kilometers long. And you can't see people all the way along. So people who are like nervous about going into the deep desert because they're worried about, the PvP is, I think there's like an element from my end, a designed moment that we've talked about on this project quite often is like, you come to the edge of this vast ocean and you dip your toe in the water and you're a little bit scared of sharks, but you see something in the distance and you think, I can make it. I can get there and I can get back. And the first time it's scary. And you feel that tension, and the second time, and the third time, but you feel that tension, but you actually start doing it, right? And I get that people worry about toxic behaviors and ganking and so forth, but we tried to build a space where you can get away from people as well.
Correct, yeah. So I think that's really important to talk about is
Yes.
in Dune, you were given the tools to get away, right? Like if overwhelming amounts of people come after you, maybe you can't quite get away, but that's generally not going to happen. So a lot of it is more about, PvP is about controlling a point and like having to give up that point if you don't
Yes.
feel like
Fighting over things
Fighting
instead of kicking
over-
down
yes,
sandcastles.
exactly.
So on the Landsraad here, this is kind of interesting, right? So you can see the Landsraad's in the state of like, if we claim this as the Atreides, we're going to win what we call a Sisselrad. And a Sisselrad means that we're going to get the voting power for the week. So a Sisselrad is when we can complete a row. So normally, if you were Harkonnen and Atreides in this situation, you'd both be fighting over this particular control point because you really don't want the other one to win for the week. But normally, like it's kind of, you're always blocking each other and causing like the other team to have to, go back and focus on filling out a row or trying to fill out as many squares as possible. So we're trying to take the
House Haggle?
House Haggle owns this control point in the deep desert. We're in the deep desert as Atreides taking over this control point on their behalf. And you can see it's just this control point. It's a place that you have to defend in the deep desert. It'll draw other people and it will earn you points over time. It's a classic control point in the deep desert. One other thing, just if you stop for a second here, one other thing I just wanted to point out, one of the feedbacks we had in beta was about team markers. You can see our new team marker system in the game here. It's deliberately only for the 4-person groups. I will not allow this to be in the game for guilds because I want, especially I know people talk about Zergs. I think when Zerg guilds and there's 40 people attacking each other on the screen, if everybody can see who's in their guild, it's very easy to target the people that you're trying to Zerg. But if it's just the group, then it's much more difficult for Zergs to actually not do friendly fire.
Yeah.
And there is full friendly fire on guilds.
I mean, they can do it if they work for it, right? They can make sure everyone has the same swatches and the same armor. So there is ways to do it, but
figure out
they have
what
to
you're
work.
dressed like and infiltrate.
Yeah.
Right?
Quickly switch to your-
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
We didn't want to take
no
away
artificial.
it's been one of my let's say I will say this is one of those things where I have had to fight with a lot of developers on this project about this. There's a crashed ship down there, by the way. It's kind of cool that you could also go loot that. But it's like giving too much information for free to players actually limits our ability for people to have politics and intrigue.
Yeah.
Because if I can see your name over your head, I know who you are, right? But if I don't know who that is, and you dress in my clothing and you walk into my base and you follow me around, it's like I might just think that you're my friend from the guild, when in fact you're just like, you know, trying to infiltrate. And we want to allow that possibility because that is Dune. At its core, that is how things work. There are plans within plans, there are groups within groups.
I remember that from early on, where your kind of law was information has to be earned.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was a very early thing.
Can I just point out that we just
Very
crossed
cool.
a server border?
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
our game has server meshing tech in the deep desert, and it's been a very painful technical thing to get working.
Yes.
But we just crossed a server border. You probably might not have even noticed any sort of hitching or anything because it's very seamless. And again, shout out to our technical team who've been
Yes,
working their
yeah.
butts off to get this in good shape. But we just crossed a server border from one server to another, and it's basically not visible, which is great.
Yeah, what we call like authority transfer.
Authority
when you move
transfer
it.
between
Yeah.
servers, yeah. So now we're picking up a random sandcrawler and bringing it out to the spice harvesting field. So, I mean, I love that. I love that mechanic. I think it's fantastic fun in the game, just picking things up.
The transport ornithopter is quite slow,
Yeah, it's very slow.
so it is dangerous to go out just in the transport ornithopter.
And you can, of course, sit in the harvester
Yes,
while being
sure, you can,
transported,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is really
So
fun too.
You can also,
Yes.
I think the transport
You can-
has like 5 seats as well. So
Yes,
there's,
yeah.
you can bring a whole little group with you.
Or have them standing on
kidnap
top.
other
Yeah.
enemy harvesters as well, which is also super fun to do.
But we should talk about spice because
Yes.
that's really
Yeah.
ties the entire end game together, right? So
Yeah.
all the tier, the tier 6 or the last like set of resources, right? Everything requires spice to craft it. So your end game gear, your end game tools,
Yep.
end game vehicles.
Everything in game requires spice for crafting, essentially. And also, we mentioned the Landsraad. The Landsraad has always the center square of the Landsraad requires spice to win. It's important. The Sandcrawler is like, it's not the full harvesters that you've seen in the films. Those are owned by the big houses. But as you can see here,
Yeah.
this is like a little like raid event. We just placed a thumper on the sand. We have a guy on a bike. He's
Exactly.
riding around dropping thumpers.
You should also hear it actually on
Yeah.
stream now. You hear
Yeah.
The thumpers are really important because sandworms roam the deep desert. They will be coming, and you need to be placing out thumpers to distract them away from that sandcrawler while it's harvesting spice. And you want to keep it on the spice as long as possible, just like in the book.
Yeah.
You want to stay on the spice, earn as much profit as you possibly can. You can even see the trail that the sandcrawler is leaving in the spice as it sucks up spice into its little vacuum pack.
Yeah, so
cool.
the sandworm stops being, it not stops, but it's less of a threat as you're going throughout Hagga Basin into
Yes.
the mid-game. But then at the end game, right, there's sandworms all over the place, and it becomes a threat again, especially when you're trying to get spice from the sands.
So yeah, so you saw the sandworm just took that thumper. Hopefully our intrepid thumper placers have put out more of them. Yeah.
They're totally well organized. They have like several people placing out thumpers.
Yeah.
They have like the scouts here in the air that we see as well, which is really cool to see.
Looking for worm signs.
Plus our transport to be ready for any kind
Yeah,
of danger that
and-
might occur.
And so as soon as the sandcrawler, like the person driving the sandcrawler knows that they're the target of the sandworm, they need to radio in and be like, get me off the sand, so that the transport ornithopter will pick them up. But at the moment, I think we're using the thumpers effectively as a team. And this is a part of it, right? Like this is why the deep desert is very Dune. I don't think you have this experience in any other game. And the idea was to create this. So if you are here with your guild, there's something to do and it's fun and it's interesting, but then other players might show up as well. And that's where it becomes another step, right?
So you're saying it's not just reskin Conan Exiles? Is that what you're saying, Joel?
We could talk about what the word reskin means. We could talk about that some of the best
Oh.
games in the world are reskins of other games.
So you see here, though, that there is a lot of sandworms that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
popping up
Yeah.
here constantly,
Yes.
which is both fun to see but also terrifying.
There is
Yes.
a limit to how much they
Yes.
will eat thumpers, right?
Yes.
They
Yeah.
do eventually get annoyed.
Eventually
There's
they
like,
have enough.
I'm not that dumb,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
They'll eat thumpers for a while.
I see what you're doing here.
They have a diverse palate.
Yes. But yeah, this is like
You also see nicely the scouts around to
Yeah.
see, like, also potentially looking out for sandstorms
Yeah,
coming in. Of
sandstorms,
course,
yes.
Yeah.
they're kind of
Worm sign.
devastating in this particular, worm signs. Enemies coming in as well.
Enemies coming in.
potentially.
Yeah,
Yes,
so yeah, it's this is kind of the experience of like harvesting spice in the deep desert from a large spice blow. And there are smaller spice blows like that you can come to
Yeah.
with a smaller guild.
We also have them in Hagga Basin, of course.
Yes.
Just way
There's
smaller than
just a
this one.
couple ones in Hagga,
Yeah.
it's very limited. because we wanted spice to be a rare resource that you need to go out here into the deep desert to get.
And talking about like concentration of people, like the spice flow you can see from really far away,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
20 plus kilometers
Yes.
away. So you do need to bring some friends to be looking out for other people coming in.
Yep.
There's another thumper down there. So I know we've seen some comments from people that are like, well, you have to go into the deep desert to get like the highest type of gear and such. What
That
do we?
is not true. We have the exchange. We just showed that before, right? So you can be somebody that is making something that a person on the exchange would want, right? That goes into the deep desert to get spice or to get, like some schematics. They can go to Arakeen or Hagga Village, post that, and then you can trade it on the exchange. Or you can meet up in person and trade with
Picking
the
up the
PvP.
crawler.
I think there
Oh.
might have been some. We can't hear it though, but there might have been some rumblings and some indication that
Yep. We, I think that they got worm sign
big
and they need to
threads
move.
is
Yeah, we
potentially
do have a
coming.
known bug in the game where the spice color disappears from the sand.
It's still there. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's happening.
Well,
Oh,
There he is.
That's why they.
and
Yeah,
there's the
we can
grandfather
actually
one.
hear that. Yeah,
that's shy.
It's great seeing the little sandworm.
Yeah, the
right
little
by the
tiny
big
one on
one.
the side. You can see the scale.
little baby like getting into the action there,
This is the ringmouth worm.
That's the ring mouth. Yeah.
and that's
uh,
gonna swallow everything
That
that's
one's
in the
big, yeah,
middle.
yeah.
They're like just everything there is lost.
It
and
takes
it's
a
like
lot. But these guys managed to succeed, and they can take their haul out of the deep desert today with them.
very well prepared.
Yeah.
They were well prepared.
Very well prepared. So as our crew here is now going back to, actually maybe we can explore a little bit because we do actually have Imperial testing stations here as well, and I think we're actually somewhat close to one if I remember correctly. So we can maybe show that from above as well. Again, to just bring it in that there is a lot of content in the deep desert that is not just like flat out PvP, right? So we really
Yeah.
want to
Correct. And this is our high-end PvE encounters happen in the deep desert. So
Yep.
the eco labs or ecological testing stations,
Yeah. Oh,
they're
yeah.
actually tuned
Apologies.
for 4 players. Yeah. So it's the main PvE challenge would be out here where you're going to get those unique schematics that we were talking about earlier. But you need to scout, you need to find them, and then you need to perhaps fight over them.
And work as a team. I think these are tuned towards minimum 4 people.
Yeah.
Right, so-
We actually showed one in our combat stream.
Yeah, the
second part,
2 days
yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly. They're like kind of wave-based, kind of very different approach than the Imperial testing stations that we have in Hagga Basin.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah,
different
that's-
every week.
It's the entrance
Yes.
to the quality station. And like as the game continues, as we go through live and we continue to update and expand, there'll be more things that show up on the map, for example, Fremen Seaches and things like that, that people would expect to explore. So things will be
Exactly.
uncovered. And as I mentioned, like the layouts for the deep desert, they're handcrafted. We have a cool system where we like build the layouts by hand and generate the spaces between them with the sand. So it's kind of like we fill in the gaps with the sand. But like we are building new layouts for this all the time, right? And then over time we'll incorporate more and more elements. So there'll be always something to do. That's the pillar of the game, infinite exploration, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the goals, is to create a space that's always explorable. And something else I'd like to say that I think is like important is we will add, like we have the DLCs and things coming for the game. We'll be adding things in the DLCs, but the deep desert will always remain something that we consider to be at the zenith of the power curve in the game. So we'll keep adding to the deep desert. So let's say that we have tier 5 items in the game and we go to tier 7, then the deep desert will start to have tier 7 equipment and items and things in it as well. We will always try to keep it on par with anything else we add in terms of power, because the deep desert really is that continually explorable space.
The central point that keeps all of the things
Yeah, and
together.
we'll continue to add like stuff, and there will be like in DLCs there'll be places where people can get access to gear that is currently in the deep desert, right? When we do that, we'll also increase the deep desert and make sure that there's more things. So that's kind of the long-term goal, is to continue updating the game and continue adding this stuff.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. To also ensure players about that. So while we actually have our team, or actually the spice harvesters, go back to on the way to the quartermaster to deploy or like to kind of
Harvest the spice. Yeah.
give him the spice, basically. Yeah, give him the spice for the Landsraad thing.
Refine.
We do have an additional asset. We have actually a video from a stress test that we did with the beta last week on Friday, where we see a lot of things happening.
Shout out to the beta players.
Yes, thank you, beta players. Fantastic work on that side as well. So here, that's actually a glimpse at the stress test that we did. That's also deep desert. Lots of people together in the deep desert, lots of ornithopters, and it's just really
All
cool
in
to
line.
have like that.
Get their ornithopters.
to like
Yeah, we were
see
spawning.
that as well.
They were spawning thopters like crazy. Someone's flamethrowing, throwing bombs. Players never behave when you put them in the same space.
If I remember, that's actually Camille with the flamethrower. Not Camille, sorry, Ignacy. I mean, that was Ignacy.
The context
Sounds
of
like
this
a
stress
troll,
test, by the way, was like we were testing people crossing the server boundaries with our mesh servers
I
and
love that
fighting
little
on them.
ornithopter back there. Sorry, it's like, sorry, go ahead.
And fighting along the server boundaries just to see how the performance was. So you'll see people firing rockets, and yeah, it was a cool test. I think we got a lot of very useful data out of this.
Yep.
And seeing how people were fighting together.
Also, shout out to our automation team because they every build, right? We have the deep desert, and they have basically they deploy our automation system called Legion, and it goes and it tests all of these things, right? So it's got hundreds of ornithopters going back and forth between all the
all the server
zone
boundaries. Yep, there's a lot of testing that goes into a project like this. It's insane.
Yes,
and the more sandboxy you get, the more things can break, and that's kind of what makes
obviously
it
the more
interesting.
freedom we also give to players,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
more
Yeah,
things
yeah,
can break.
exactly.
And like, I think I said that to you earlier as well. That like, story-driven games that are linear and you follow one story are one thing. We do have that aspect in the game as well, but I think what we at Funcom really love to do is we love to create worlds where players can write their own stories and can tell their own stories, right?
Yes.
I think that's such a different approach to
Yeah,
game development.
One of the ways we describe Arrakis is a crisis generator,
Yeah.
right? So
One of the
it
four.
is
Yep.
spawning stories, and that's why like these tense locations like the deep desert are really important because it does spawn these memorable moments that you remember that you go
Exactly.
experience with your friends or your
Yes.
guild. You make friends, you make enemies, and that's really important to like fully experience the politics and intrigue of Dune.
100%.
The power of multiplayer, right?
Exactly.
Yes, like I remember, like we had a lot of really cool. Before we go back to actually delivering the spice, we had actually a lot of really cool moments from streamers and players and YouTube content creators about the beta weekend or from the beta weekend. And I remember one moment. I call it the GTA moment, where one of the streamers, I think, he was harvesting
one.
something or something.
Yeah.
Oh
No,
no, he was downed.
He was downed by an enemy.
He was
Yeah,
downed but
yeah,
not out.
yeah.
And then the
Yes,
other one
yeah.
comes in and just drives over the enemy that was like targeting him,
Yes.
and he couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah,
It's like these little moments that make, that create those stories that are so fun to share as well and are unique to you then. And it's like, and that is, I think, where for me, that satisfaction of really creating those worlds comes.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things like we get a bit of I mean it's fine, like we get feedback like, oh, jank, right? Like
Yeah.
being able to stand on top of an ornithopter is janky. It is, but when they asked me if we should remove that, I said no.
No.
Surfing on an ornithopter is actually
That's very cool.
Why isn't that cool? Like why isn't that something
Yeah.
we want? So like sometimes we make those choices as well. Like it's like this might look a little weird sometimes. But you know what? It's way
a
more fun when you can do it.
feature,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
it's
way
a
more fun
feature.
when you can do it.
The meta on beta might have been, surfing on ornithopters, shooting people with assault
A
rifles.
little bit of that might be
Yeah.
fixed now. We fixed some of the assault rifle issues.
All right, so let's go back into delivering the spice now. Oh, actually, no, let's talk a little more. I actually wanted to ask you both a question. You actually have answered that recently in an interview, but that's not the reason I'm asking, because I plan to do it anyway. It's like, what is each of you's favorite thing in the game? I mean, you mentioned a few things that we saw, like the transport ornithopter and stuff, but I'm pretty sure there's other things that you're particularly proud of.
So, survival games for me, one of the best things they do is they make the world more interactable than other genres, right? So I think the team has done a great job of like using the harvesting system. Not only does the cut array like cut up the resources and get it, but you come across these like wrecked ornithopters. And every time I come across one and I'm cutting off the wings and getting the resources from it, it just feels great, right? Because it makes the game grounded. So I would say that whole entire system there is really unique with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think I'm thinking about the one that I mentioned in the interview as well, probably. But like the Dew Reaper, and the way that you, because I like. Look, I made Conan. We made Conan, and Conan's a bit more stock standard in the survival sense, right? You're chopping down trees and you're harvesting rocks. And when it came to Dune, we had the design principle of like make your designs fit Dune, do not make Dune fit your designs. And it was like, what is harvesting water look like in Dune? And there's a line in the book where Duke Leto is looking out a window and the sun's rising and there's all these people out in the fields harvesting dew off the flowers. And you're like, that's how precious water is on this planet. And that's a moment that our game needs to have. And so it isn't just like the confluence, it's like, yeah, it's cool, this action of like sweeping the dew off the top of plants using this little Holtzman field that drains the water up into, and like, not only did the animation team and the effects team nail that, and the audio team got all of that works, but it's also like the back end, the time of day, checking when the dew harvest time is optimal, feeling like, and it's so satisfying to be out there like 10 minutes before the sun comes up, and you're filling just liter johns full of water because you understood the game system and you understood the timing. All of those things come together to create an experience that I think for me it's just like, you can't have this experience in any game except Dune. And to me that's the most precious thing, right? Like I feel like it's so good when all those things come together. Like as a developer, that's just the most rewarding stuff, right? And it feels good. And I don't really care if anyone else likes it because I love it so much. No, because I think it really nails it, right? Like I can't speak more highly of how cool that works, right? And shout out to the team who worked on it and everybody who did their part.
No, I get that.
Because games are made by teams, right?
That's the other thing.
Yes, absolutely. So we actually made it now to the Quartermaster, and we are.
So we're going to deliver
the
spice.
Yes.
Try to win the Landsraad. Okay. So these guys,
to get back.
These guys ask you, so you, because you're sort of you're a minor house or a minor house under the umbrella of the Atreides, you deliver Landsraad bribes to the Quartermasters of the Atreides, and they make sure they get where they're supposed to go. So now we're delivering for House Alexan, we're delivering spice. And the House Alexan are a part of the manufacturing unit, which is where they... And so we're delivering 500 spice melange, and then they're going to make sure that it reaches them. And then that will, in a moment, change the Landsraad. So you can see how you have an impact now. So Landsraad is there under the social tab. This board refreshes every so often. So it's been a few seconds since the last refresh. Now we should be able to see our borders refresh with a certain amount of spice. Oh, we didn't go to Alexan. You're on the wrong one. You need to go to Alexan. It's in the middle.
The middle.
Yes, and then we can see that we've delivered some spice and the goal amount has gone up. So that you can see that we've increased our goal amount with House Alexan there.
So we've worked towards.
Yes. So we haven't worked like once we hit 70,000 points. And we can do any of these activities to earn points, like the control point. We can
claim those.
We can deliver spice melange. But once we've done enough to earn that center square, then it'll flip to be Atreides and say that we've claimed it for the week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
great.
Nice.
So that was a little bit of a glimpse of what mid and end game can look like. Obviously, that totally depends on what you like to play and how you like to play. There's quite a lot of options. We showed you a few of them, an approach of what can be done.
We're also jamming like dozens of hours of gameplay into like a very quick presentation.
Yes, 100%. Like this is very like, preparation is everything, which is of course true for the game specifically as well. But before we dive into the Q&A, we are gonna take a quick look at the Mentats.
So then, you're not quite dead.
Great plot.
Developed out of the need to replace thinking machines, the Mentats trained on the principles of philosopher Gilbertus Albans, became one of the most important people in the Imperium. Able to calculate immense amounts of data and devise complex strategies, they are the most advanced tacticians on the battlefield. Combined with advanced assassination and combat technology, you will be able to think many steps ahead of your enemies. With a significantly higher cognition, as a mentat, you can calculate trajectories and weapon handling to find weak points in an opponent's defense, or even guide the calculations of an external sentinel turret to assist you with extra firepower. Focusing on strategic control over raw strength, a mentat is an expert in assassination technology, using poison capsules to trap enemies in a cloud of death, or when out of sight, send in a hunter-seeker before the enemy has even noticed your presence. For a tactical advantage, the mentats have devised further development of Imperial technology, such as the shield wall for extra protection. And to fool simple-minded enemies, a projection of yourself will confuse and scatter their focus. Throughout the dunes of Arrakis, any school can be trained and improved by masters, increasing your mental capacity and further advancing your tactical technology will let you hold the strategic advantage in any situation. But to reach the highest tactical operation, adopting other schools of thought will increase your mental complexity, opening up further possibilities. Focus your mind and calculate each step forward to find the optimal probability for your survival on Arrakis.
All right, and we are back for our Q&A. So our wizards behind the screens and behind the cameras are gonna throw up questions that have been collected. They're ready now. I was just being told, fantastic.
Before anybody asks any questions, though, I just want to make a reveal of my own.
Nice.
Special toe shoes today for everybody's.
They look really cool though.
They are cool.
But
No.
it also looks a bit like Hobbit feet, to be fair. Like at least close up, Chad. So it's good you have a little bit of a. It's good you don't have
Not
close
for all the money in the world.
From what I understand, they're very healthy though. They're very better for you than actual normal shoes. So
Yep.
That's what they say.
that's what they say.
I started wearing them 10 years ago and I'm still
Still
fat,
not
so I don't know. Maybe
Super
they're,
healthy.
Maybe they're not working out.
Well, your feet are very healthy.
My
Let's go
feet
there.
are massively
Yeah,
healthy.
super
Sorry, all
healthy.
right. Enough
All right.
distraction. I apologize.
No, you don't
Just
have to.
the toe reveal was
You
important
don't have
to me.
to. We wouldn't want you any other way, Joel. All right. Rui's probably going to kill me now, man.
Yeah.
All right.
We want him every other way.
Every other way. No. It's all good. Like it's also you guys make a really nice, you complement each other really well.
I've got
It's
pants. He doesn't have pants.
Exactly. He has toe shoes. You actually wear socks as well. So it's just like, it's a whole balance thing. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
all
Nice.
right. All right. While we still wait on the questions, they're still collecting some of them.
Nobody has
give
any
them a little
questions.
bit of. Maybe no one has
We've
questions.
answered
Perfect.
every possible question
I
people
wish,
could have is
right,
fully
I
answered.
wish. Like that's kind of both the blessings and the blessing and the challenge of Dune Awakening. I think is just it has so many aspects of different games. That we really try to put together and have people try and understand.
Were you there when I was like presenting to the press about the game and I was calling Funcom morons for taking
Yes, of course I was
Yes,
there.
yeah.
I was expecting headlines.
I-
we didn't
take
get
a
a
lot
single
of risks.
headlines.
Yes.
We didn't get a single headlines like that.
Yeah.
Funcoms are morons.
Well,
Chief Creative Director says.
Well, we are like we keep trying to, like it's one of the things that I love about working here. Is like they let me do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They let me try and do weird shit. Like
mean-
it's like you could work somewhere where you're doing the same game every year. Speaking of reskins, like and you're making the exact same thing and you're within this box and it's like and like I do like that we're allowed to push beyond those things,
I
right? And
agree.
try harder to do something different. And yeah, it comes with a little bit of jank, but man, I don't know. I feel like it's like the...
I agree, though. I think one thing you can't say about us is that we like it easy.
No, exactly.
like-
We're morons. We make it hard for ourselves every time.
It's what we were talking about at the beginning, right? We make unique games, right? We take risks, and sometimes it means that we make divisive decisions. But I think that's what was great about the beta, right? It's like people got to see what the true experience was. Oh, and here is
Exactly. So we're ready actually for the question. So is that Lopil 125? Is the exchange global or per server?
It is per world. So the world is what we call a container of all the Hagga Basin that you will play and interact with, right? So there are hundreds of worlds, so it is not global.
Yeah, it is 1 deep desert per world,
Yeah.
2 social hubs per world, and then many Hagga Basins per world. And that is what we call a world. And yeah, as Scott says, at launch there are hundreds of worlds to choose from, right? And within each world there's many Hagga Basins to choose from.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And Speak asks, are the overland map dungeons instanced per player? Can you do them as a group, or are they open like the social hubs?
The answer is that they are not instanced for a group. They are per player, and they're not open like the social hubs.
They are instanced, though.
Yes, they are
to
instanced.
a limit.
To a limit.
Several people in the same world can be doing the same, like the
single.
water fat engine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are kind of our only instant content in that way,
Yes.
in
Yes.
that sense.
Yep. Correct.
Charlie Foxtrot TV asks, how do the different circuits work?
They basically isolate resources so that they can only be used if they're on that circuit. And then you can set a circuit for it's a little bit hard in the UI, but you can set like a machine's input and output circuit that way. And so that's kind of the extent with it.
Like draw from this storage, deliver to this storage when you're finished, right? And that's
Basically,
how this,
Or this group of
Yeah,
connected
and,
items.
yeah, exactly. And you can set a certain number of storages per circuit, and so yes, that's basically it.
Kriegsdrachen asks, how will they ensure balance between Harkonnen and Atreides?
There are systems. I think I talked about this in that other.
You
when I got that
just
question.
mentioned as well as
I
like
hedged it
we
last time.
have, but
We
you
have
didn't
some
want to
systems,
spoil
but I'm
it,
not going
which
to
we
talk too
should
much
exactly.
about. And then when we introduce a third faction, which we are planning to, it will also have a role in that balance. But that's basically what I can say right now. But ensure is very hard. Like it's very hard to be 100% certain because, when you give players choice, they choose. And so you can't guarantee that it's going to be 100%, not 100% people on Atreides on a world. But I think we have pretty good systems in place to make sure that at least feels like it balances itself out pretty well.
Yes, and the deep desert is not Atreides versus Harkonnen.
Yes.
It is every
Yes.
person for themselves, right? So even if Harkonnen are kind of dominating a server, or they're 60-40, they're going to be fighting themselves in the deep desert as well.
And that's actually something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Landsraad. Like the Landsraad, you can see the different within the
guilds.
factions who the top guilds are and who contributed the most. Because a part of the Dune thing is that it isn't that everybody in Atreides is a monolith. It's actually people want the Duke's attention, so they want to be further up. And the same with the Harkonnen, right? I want the Baron to, witness me, so I'm trying to get to the top of the list of guilds. So there should be inter-guild competition even within the factions. So they overall are working towards the common goal of the Landsraad, but they're trying to beat each other to be the best in the Landsraad, so they have the most voting power, they get the rewards, etc.
Yeah, especially also because one Atreides guild might be focused on PvP, the other one might be super opposed to PvP.
Yep.
So they definitely don't want the PvP guild to get, we want full PvP. So
Yes.
they will, work against them and
Yes.
we want to be top because we want to have more say in which decree we're actually going to have next week.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
a crafting guild's going to want the crafting decrees.
Exactly,
And
yes.
they're not going to want the PvP full loot decree, right?
Exactly,
So there's going to be
yes.
that kind of competition even within the factions.
Yes, exactly.
So, yep, good question.
Cypher asks, can our bases get raided?
So not in Hagga Basin. They will be safe in Hagga Basin. In the deep deserts, it's a bit different.
Yeah, in the PvE section of the Deep Desert, no.
Yeah.
But in the PvP section of the Deep Desert, there is a mechanism by which bases have a vulnerability window where they can be raided. It is a very short vulnerability window, and again, I would point to the lore of the Dune universe. So I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't read the books and doesn't know a way in which shields can go down for a brief period of time. But it is worth looking into because then you'll understand exactly how the mechanics can work. And I know I'm being needlessly cryptic, but I'm sure there's people spamming in the chat about it already.
Let them figure it out. Oldman Alchemist, if I don't take the mission to talk with House Atreides or Harkonnen, will I be content locked as far as progressing, sorry,
No,
the
that's
main story and the ability to craft?
No.
Yeah, no. The story, I mean, while it involves House Atreides and the Harkonnen, it is not about that. It's about you and your role on Dune.
It's your quest to find the Fremen and wake the
Exactly.
sleeper, right?
Yeah.
So the main story follows that. What we were talking about and what we were showing earlier with the different faction unlocks, like in terms of the visuals and those things, you're locked out of if you don't want to join a faction.
But those
You
are
can't get,
pure vanity.
but they're pure vanity, right?
No mechanics.
But yeah, you can't. But one thing you cannot join the Landsraad unless you have aligned yourself with a faction. Your guild must be aligned with a faction to participate in the Landsraad. That is the one hard requirement that I think faction alignment has in the game. That's it. Otherwise, yeah, you can do all the content without joining Atreides or Harkonnen.
I also think when it comes to progressing, during the beta weekend, you were still very much in the tutorialization part of the game,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that some players were like, whoa, this is very linear and things. But the thing is, things open up quite more once you're past that tutorialization section as well. So you won't be actually locked progressing when it comes to crafting or where you spend your points.
Yeah, and in the opening,
Intel points specifically.
in the opening of the game, after character creation, you actually get a choice as to whether you want to play with an unlocked tech tree or a locked tech tree. The reason we put that there is so that people who are advanced survival players or people who've played Dune before can just go, okay, I want the unlocked tech tree, I know what I'm doing. But I recommend, and we recommend, that the locked tech tree is for people who are playing the game for the first time and really, because there are so many, we've been talking about it a lot today, there are so many mechanics that are just kind of Dune mechanics that we want people to learn and we need to teach them. And it's going to be hard for you to know what to do. Like, you don't know about dew reaping and times of day when you should be out harvesting dew unless you follow the tutorials that we put in place for that, right? So it's just that.
Or that you need to go to shipwrecks to craft better weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Koopa is asking, is there a level cap
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe we're at 200
Yeah.
currently?
currently.
But you can respec.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's, I believe it's on a 48-hour cycle. So even if you cap out and you play something and you decide you don't like it, you can switch to something else.
And there's a point where you run out of, you stop getting unlock points for your tech tree, intel points. And then we have a mechanic in the game for you to go around and unlock more intel points by going to bases in the world, like enemy bases and outposts. So there's a level cap that puts a stop to some of those progression things, and then the next step from there is for you to go and explore more and enjoy the game more.
Because we do want you to make some choices, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Also, there's different level and skill point caps, right? Because you have a character level, you have skill points, and you have intel points. So
Yes.
there's 3 different caps that you
Yeah,
particularly
exactly.
hit. K69N is asking, is it possible to lose all your gear in PvP?
So not in PvP in the base level. In the deep desert, you lose resources that you're carrying, Solari and Spice, and you take durability damage to some of your gear. Right, that's what happens every time you die, PvE or PvP. But if there's a specific decree from the Landsraad which enables full loot PvP in the deep desert for 1 week, then that's the only time in the game where you can lose all your gear in PvP. That's it.
Or if you're fighting in the sand and a sandworm comes and eats you.
Yeah, sure.
If you
I
try
guess
to
you
fight
can
the
lose all your gear in
sandworm,
PvP, but we count the. Is the sandworm PvP really?
You know.
It's more like PvE, but yes, 100%.
Wolfie1974, are we going to be able to get blueprints that devs made of their bases?
Oh, the Tor Eagle presents.
Exactly, this is Tor Eagle presents. That's actually very cool. I love that idea. That's actually a very cool
Maybe we can
idea.
fill up some vendors post-launch with some of our
I was
pre-mades. Maybe,
yes,
we'll
I
see.
was just about to say I don't think players should actually pay for them per se, but we should, or maybe they need to. I don't know.
You don't want copies of my
I mean,
bases.
you shouldn't. No, actually, let me rephrase that. We shouldn't have a dev sell those items in game, but we can sell it via
Oh,
NPC.
sure, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I meant, right?
Maybe
Like,
we can put a vendor or something
that'd
like
be
that.
cool. Yeah, like you
Yeah,
mentioned.
maybe a vendor in the world can sell some blueprints.
You see, like Toel bases
Toregel's the
everywhere.
guy. Toregel's the builder among us. Mine would just be no one
Mine
wants,
are boxes.
No one wants to see
Yeah.
my. I'm the guy who tests T2P
New dog houses.
TTP every time.
Yes.
So
I'm sure we're gonna have players who make fantastic buildings. Okay, Quintinovic is asking, will GeForce now be in Dune Awakening?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
I have no idea.
discussions going on.
There's
at least.
discussions. I can't remember what the last is, but people are looking at it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't have Slack open, otherwise you could check.
GeForce
Someone
Now
was
is
just, like
the
hammering
streaming
messages
service,
to
right?
me
So
online.
will-
It's like
the question, I guess, would be, will Dune Awakening be on GeForce Now for streaming?
yes, that's what I
Yep.
interpreted.
I don't
as
know
well.
the answer. I'm sorry, but Scott.
Yeah, I don't think I have an official answer, but I believe so. But yeah.
Helping Hans, how do you balance the council wins? If one side gets unique weapons, won't that side have a better chance to win the next vote down the line?
Not necessarily, because the tasks for the Landsraad are pulled from, so there's 25 tasks per week, and there's a pool of 400 tasks that can potentially show up. So you, first of all, don't necessarily know what's going to be there. Unique weapons doesn't actually influence everything. Some of the tasks are kill tasks. You don't know which tasks are going to be revealed first. You also have to bribe Landsraad envoys with spice to reveal tasks. And if your faction does it before the other faction, you'll see, okay, we need to do this. So you might just get ahead because you had more spice or whatever. It's not going to come down to unique weapons. Absolutely not. That's not going to be the thing that means that one side gets a sudden landslide kind of advantage. So I think that's the best way to answer that, I think, from my perspective.
I think that's a great answer too, and I think it just goes again into people are a little bit too afraid that everything is about PvP and fighting endgame, and that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
And hopefully we explained that a little bit today as well for people to feel a bit more relaxed about that, or disappointed, depending. Dr. Evil Eye, is there any content or materials that are hidden behind PvP, meaning that the only way to obtain that item gear material is to risk losing to large guilds?
I wouldn't
Those
say
are
hidden, but
insane.
like you can. The Deep Desert, which we just explained, is a place where tier 6 gear is, like items and materials for crafting those things. You need to go there to get those things. You can buy them off the exchange. You can trade for them with other people. But yes, you have to go to that place in order to get those things. And there is a risk of people attacking you when you're in that place. We tried to explain that this is a very large place. It's not going to be possible for a guild to cover the entire space. It's
Yeah,
just
there's
not going to be
members.
possible.
Yeah. I think guild limit's 32.
The guild limit
Yes.
is 32 people.
Yeah. So one per kilometer,
Yeah.
maybe, if they stretch
Yeah,
across.
they'd have to stretch all the way across, and even then, I think there's all kinds of
Yeah,
tactics and
yeah.
ways to draw them off, and I don't think it's going to be a problem.
There are potentially hundreds and hundreds of people that can be in the deep desert,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So one guild would be outnumbered by 100 people.
Again, if you want to rat, you can rat.
Yeah,
There's options, right?
And also, the tier 6 gear isn't required for the story or
Yeah.
for anything that's having to do with
Yeah.
Hagga Basin, right?
It's-
It's sort of just the deep desert loop.
But we
aspect of
can't
it.
tell people that they can't get to the the number go up because they really
Sure,
people
sure.
always want that. So
Yeah.
so it's
There are
even
other
though,
ways to get it.
even
though.
though it's
Yeah.
not required. You I know people are going to want it.
I feel like it makes sense though, because those people who really care about the highest level tier are probably the PvPers, and they want to be in the deep desert in the first place. So I feel like it's kind of a natural balance there too. in that
Hopefully,
way.
we also have I think there's this weird. I speak to a lot of people in our closed beta and our Discord, right? And I see that there's people who kind of assume that everybody who is a guild in PvP is going to be this toxic, sweaty kind of. And I think
Right.
it's going to be the opposite. I think we're going to have the good guy guilds who are out there actually protecting people and helping people out. I've seen it in the beta already. People, I got lost in the desert, help, and people would come and help them,
Yes.
give them
Yeah.
rides home,
Yeah.
give them more gear. I've seen people in the beta just give other people an ornithopter when they lost one because of a bug that was in the game from our end. They're like, "Oh, do you want an ornithopter? I have a spare one." Right? It's great to see, and I think that people worry too much about toxicity. Hopefully, we'll keep track of it, of course, but
Yeah.
it should be fine.
And you have one player for the
Yeah.
entire world,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and you are your name, right? So you will have some sort of reputation.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well.
Yeah, as a callback to more old school MMOs that I grew up with, like EverQuest and all those. But anyway, so we have 2 more questions. Fort Team is asking, do you need a sync chart for each person in your guild?
Yes. You need to create a sync chart for every person who's going to want to reveal those things that you've got in your sync chart.
They're single-use items.
Yeah, they're single-use items, consumables, once you've created them.
And last questions. Neo Valkyrion, can transport ornithopters carry other ornithopters?
Yes, they can.
They can indeed.
They can indeed. I was playing it earlier. I was flying around carrying a medium ornithopter with my
they can
transport.
pick up pretty
and
much
assault.
anything.
Yeah.
And
Well,
again, they have
anything
passengers
vehicular.
too.
Yes, vehicular. Can't pick up people.
No.
Unless they're...
Inside.
They're sitting inside a vehicle. All right. So that was it with the questions for today, and also for our last developer stream before
Exciting.
Head Start and the official release. I'm like still like how. Okay, so
It's like 7
how
days,
do
8
you
days?
how do you boys feel, gents?
Me
How do you
first.
feel?
Go, Scott.
Pretty good, right?
Pretty good?
So beta went really well from
Yeah.
our perspective. The tech was stable, and that's what we're always worried about. Because we knew the game was pretty good, or we thought the game was
We
really
think
good,
so,
right?
yeah.
And all the tests we had run showed that. But we were a little fearful, that tech would hold, and it went really, really well with the closed-ish beta, right? The weekend, where, the server crash rate was low, the client crash rate was within our acceptable tolerance, and we're fixing most of the issues that we found. So cautiously optimistic, right? Incredibly excited to show the entire game, and so yeah.
See reactions.
But the last week is always
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like it's 5 years of your life, right? And it's like I think that's the thing that I think is like what I'm not sure people understand. Is like when you've been living and breathing this kind of thing for 5 years, and then like you see the game industry is volatile.
Yeah.
Things don't go well for people. We have a team of that I love to work with. We have a team of great people that we've built over the last years, and it's like it isn't about like success in the sense of like I just want to say that it is a game that I think is great, right? And I've played it and I kind of know that it has a lot going on, right? And I think it works well. And from the beta we got some confirmation of that. But I want my team to be together making games for a long time, right? So for me, this is like I'm nervous about that, right? Like the gaming industry is not a safe place anymore, right? It's not easy to guess what's going to be successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching things and like you see things that are fantastic from small teams going great, like and there's been some fantastic games this year and games that you wouldn't have predicted coming out of nowhere, like Schedule 1 is a great one, but also like Claire Obscura, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't heard of it until really it blew up. And so you see these games, these huge successes. So I think it's like, you don't want to have the arrogance to think that you could be among that, but you hope. And that's kind of where I'm at least. I'm hoping we strike a vibe. I'm hoping that all the decisions that we made, and there's 10,000 decisions on a gaming project, right? There's 10,000 decisions, and every one of them is about moving towards a goal, right? Towards a vision, a creative vision, a vision of a universe, a vision that a guy created in 1963 when he wrote a book, right? And that's, I don't know, like I'm extremely nervous, but that's what we're trying to get to, right? And that's, I hope what people feel when they play the game is, yeah, okay, you nailed it, right? Like that's what we want.
And I feel like we've made an amazing Dune game, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first where you're walking right on Arrakis, and you're experiencing Paul's journey.
We're skipping 2001's Frank Herbert's Dune,
sure. But for me, right, in a modern sense anyway. So it's and we have a story when we want to tell. People saw a really short glimpse of it in the beta, but there's so much more going through the rest of Act 1 and Act 2, right? Playing through that. And there's this long story that we want to tell over the, like you said 10 years, right? On the thing.
That's the
So
plan.
I'm seeing that. So
10-year
we have a long story. We want to continue releasing updates, every 3-4 months with additions to that story, in addition to the DLCs that we're going to to come out. So when you buy the game, you're getting everything here right now, plus all the story content that we'll continue to release over the next years. So yeah, we're excited. It's a lot of pressure, but yeah, we'll do fine.
There's no guarantees in Love and War, but you know what? I'll say this for the record. I'm really proud of our team and what they've done. And like, no matter what happens, all of them can hold their heads up high because they have worked really hard to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely. Shout out to our teams, the many teams that work on this game with all different departments.
Every department.
And absolutely, it's a beast of a game. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually getting goosebumps now. I'm sorry. I'm actually getting goosebumps. I'm such a. Yeah, anyway. But I think that's a wonderful note to end this, again, last developer stream.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before Head Start and release. One thing we can actually say is that you will be able to upgrade your editions on the 10th of January. So there will be an option.
10th of June,
10th of, June. Oh my God. Yeah. That wonderful ending. I just completely read.
That's fine.
Oh well.
Congratulations.
Anyway, pro here, right? Yes, so 10th of June, when the game goes into full release, you will be able to upgrade your editions, should you want to do that. There will be options on Steam. And we'll be ending. Thank you so much again, Scott and Joel, for being here during out of your busy schedules. So we really appreciate it, talking to us. And we'll have a last trailer. And with that, I thank everyone for watching and joining us today. And hopefully, you'll enjoy what's coming your way.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, see you on Thursday.
Yeah, cheers.
So then, you're not quite dead.
Great plots are afoot in the Imperium. And the currents of intrigue run deeply. You will go to Arrakis as our agent. You have one task. Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
You were sighted fleeing the scene of a terrible crash. Who are you?
You've heard the expression, the spice must flow. I am the man who ensures that it continues to do so.
I dreamed of you. Burst in fire. Twin comets in the sky. The seer of lies. I am terrified of what happens when you awaken.
We've all lost our way. You can complete the mission.
Every person carries their past with them.